Welcome to Thrive Dialogues. I am so excited to share this next micro-learning with you with a good friend of mine, Freida Rothman, who is the CEO and owner of Freida Rothman Jewelry and Accessories, as well as her Chief of Brand, Susan Rutenberg. And we're going to be talking about a really important subject. This is the subject of creativity and the idea of how important that is as a leader, as an employee, to develop that skill, that understanding. So first of all, thank you to both Freida and Susan for joining me on Thrive Dialogues.
We're so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for having us.
Great. Well, let's begin from your perspective, Freida. Why is it important for people in business to develop creativity?
I think in any business, it is so important to constantly be able to reinvent yourself through creativity. Every business has to always be thinking of new ways to approach their customer, even if they have something that works really, really well. We always have to have those creative ideas, creative juices flowing. There's lots of competition in business, and you should always be brainstorming and coming up with different creative ideas to tell your story and share with people about your business.
Oh, excellent. Susan, do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, and really just make yourself stand out from the crowd. Like, how do you differentiate yourself and your business and your brand, your company from everybody else? And it's just a constant work in progress. You just constantly have to be developing those new ideas and differentiating yourself and really being fresh and new. There's so much noise in the industry. So you really need to stay on top of it and keep going. You never become complacent or too comfortable. Always be working on the next thing.
Awesome. Well, is there an example of a creative idea that kind of fermented in your mind and then you saw the results of that creativity? And could you give us an example?
So I think the main thing would be really being able to take the inspiration of the collections, coming from creative, from fashion, and thinking about, all of my collections are inspired by Brooklyn, and taking that idea of Brooklyn and the story of the inspiration and then turning it into jewelry collections and actually selling it and having customers that love it and believe in it. So that to me is a success, being able to tie the story, tie the inspiration, taking that sketch from brain, creativity, putting it on paper, and actually bringing it to market. So that to me, I think, is a direct correlation of creativity and actually turning it into a business.
Well, for example, a manhole cover that most of us would just ignore, it inspired you to make, what was it?
It was a necklace. It was a pendant that I designed that was inspired by a manhole cover in the streets of New York, and thinking to myself, will this resonate? Will people connect with the inspiration and the story? The reason I choose Brooklyn as my inspiration, I was born and raised in Brooklyn. Brooklyn was a safe place for my grandparents, who were all Holocaust survivors, and I really wanted to tell that story through my collections. So seeing creativity, connecting with people has been a really, truly great experience for my business, personally and professionally. And, I think also sharing stories about our Women of Strength campaign, honoring and highlighting strong women through the world of fashion, through my jewelry collections, coming up with different creative ideas of how to share stories in different platforms and different events that we can do, highlighting strong women. These are all things that started with an idea of creativity and then kind of became something really big. So to watch that process from beginning to having a campaign of talking about strong women being featured on a QVC, on a Nordstrom level, nationwide, where millions of women were able to hear that story, all just started from one creative idea.
It was women that haven't been necessarily spoken about within the industry. So we really took this idea of women empowerment and talking about women of strength, but focusing on women that weren't highlighted and celebrated in the industry. So female Holocaust survivors, women in the military, women in healthcare, and really brought their stories to life. And it also differentiated us because it was not something that other companies and other brands were doing.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What a fascinating way to think about presenting jewelry by really telling women's stories, not your story, but these individual women's stories, and then somehow connecting it to the jewelry. That's just, I mean, no one's doing that. I don't know. I haven't seen that being done. We might hear stories, but you actually wanted to highlight the women and then kind of make the jewelry afterwards. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's exactly right. And, being a creative person, I've always been creative. I've always been an artist. For me, what truly inspires me is what people are not doing, not what everybody else is doing. So don't always follow everybody's talking about this. So let's talk about this now. Purposely, like when I go to the fashion events and they're all talking about one thing, if it's sustainability, and they're all good things. But I'm like, okay, they're all following that train. So what else can we do that's different than everybody else? So that's kind of how I approach creativity, is how we can do things that not everybody else is doing. Because that's how you're going to stand out, really.
Really? It sounds so good.
Your connection with your customer and make them want to engage with your brand even more. That's what happened with our Women of Strength campaign. They were more connected with our brand and wanted to even share their own stories. So from this one idea, then it really built up into other creative ideas and how to really scale this campaign and make it even larger and nationwide and really localized in each city or town region.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know that you have to kind of embed this kind of thinking, and you have a large organization, Freida. I mean, you're an international jeweler. So how do you embed this concept of creativity across all your employees?
I think it's really important to listen. I think being a mother of 4 kids, I think we kind of have to be listeners. But it's really important for me to hear. I want to hear ideas from every division in the company. It could be from an executive, it could be from the shipping department, because everybody has something to add. And I think the more we listen, the more we can grow. And I try to make that every idea is a good idea. Whatever you present is a good idea. Never knock what somebody is saying, because you never know the path it's going to take. It could start with, and that's how I start also with sketching and design. It starts with just a little idea, and then it's develops into something more special and bigger. So I really try to listen as much as we can. We keep an open table. We have also set aside special brainstorming times and sessions. So if you dedicate time for that versus, ideas flowing all over the place, but saying, on Wednesdays, we're going to sit down at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and all we're going to do is brainstorm. So setting aside dedicated time definitely makes a difference in creativity and brainstorming, and being open to listen to anyone in the company, I think, are 2 really key factors to creativity and brainstorming.
I love that. Has there ever been a time, I know that you constantly are reinventing yourselves and reinventing new product lines, so to speak, of jewelry. Have you ever had a dry spell, and how did you get yourself to have those creative juices flowing again?
So the answer is yes and yes, absolutely. I know you're a writer as well and an author, and you know how it is when you put pen to pencil and wait, what am I doing now? I come up with 4 new collections a year. So it kind of, you kind of can hit that rut and what can I bring to my clients that is fresh, new, and different, that they haven't seen before, that will get them excited again to want to be a part of the new collection. So you definitely get that writer's block, but I find that how I get myself out of it is sometimes taking yourself out of your everyday environment definitely helps. Just like if it means going for a walk, you never know. Since the inspiration does come from Brooklyn, it could be, I see a fire hydrant that has a very interesting crisscross design or interesting groove in it. And I say, okay, let's take that. And once that starts, then it just flows. So it's just a matter of, again, planting that seed in my mind that will just help the rest of the collection goes. And that's truly how it goes. So, and I usually sketch and design in my house. So the requirements in my house is that the house must be clean. Otherwise my mind is messy and I can't design. And always have some light classical music, which kind of gets you in that mode. feeling calm and relaxed. But doesn't always mean when I sit down that it's just going to flow. So it's a combination of a few things. But I think for me, what really works is getting yourself out of your day-to-day grind and feeling inspired being outside. A walk does wonders, or a really good drive does wonders too.
And even with we could say the same with our campaign concept. So not just the inspiration of the actual collection, but really being creative and constantly coming up with new ideas every season for our campaign, keeping it fresh, or even a business idea. Sometimes when you sit down and try and think of that creative concept, it doesn't come to you. Like, you need to really take yourself out from away from your tasks and let that inspiration hit you. And even just have conversations. When we're having conversations with our colleagues and other employees, sometimes those ideas just happen organically.
Wow. I know that COVID was obviously a challenge for someone in your industry. It's been for many, but particularly in your industry. Creativity can also be, considered an innovation, taking a problem and looking at it slightly different and coming up with a solution. So is there anything that you did in COVID that required creativity to go on and thrive as a business owner?
So there's two things that really rise to the top that I think would help a lot of business owners. First of all, I have to say, COVID to me was in a way, it was outside of what was happening in the world, but it was an exciting time for my business because I felt like it was year one. Mm-hmm. And we were all in the trenches. We were okay, how are we driving revenue in this company? No one is shopping. No one is going anywhere. We sell jewelry. We sell luxury items, accessories, handbags. What are we going to do? So we really all had to, I remember we were all just hunkered down and almost this desperate mode. Are we still going to have a business tomorrow? And I was just so proud of our team and how we were able to okay, this is what we're going to do. So there was two things that we did that really helped our business. Since a lot of retailers were kind of canceling, and they canceled their orders. People were not walking into stores, and that was the main part of our business. We were thinking to ourselves, okay, how can we reach our customers that are at home? So immediately, I would say, in the first month, we already booked out virtual styling sessions, virtual trunk shows, where we can directly speak with the clients that are not even clients, anybody that was willing to listen, really, that was sitting on her couch and she just wanted to hear some great styling tips. People were spending a lot of time on Zoom. They wanted jewelry. They wanted earrings that elevated their look. They wanted a great necklace. So we kind of said, let's see how we can work with, what's happening in the world. And I was able to reach women across the country. Somebody was sitting at her desk in Washington, D.C. Somebody was sitting in Seattle. And we were just 50 women at a time. Whoever we were able to get together, we were doing these virtual events. I would say that definitely saved my business. And then we also started literally right before COVID, but this saved our business too. We worked with stylists, women across the country that had either great style sense or they were already stylists for clothing companies. And we partnered with over 150 women across the country that became Freida Rothman stylists that were styling their customers with jewelry. They introduced us to their clients and their customer base. We were able to create, again, virtual events with their clients and kind of show them how to style with their existing clothing that they had, how they can elevate their looks for every day, even though that they're home, they still want to look beautiful. Birthdays never went away, anniversaries never went away. All of these special moments in our lives never went away. And the fact that we were able to empower women during such a difficult and challenging time for the world. And they were able to have their own businesses, keep themselves busy, because we know if we're not busy, then our mental health is not in a good place. So it was a really good feeling to be a part of that and to kind of literally start from scratch. We were at ground zero and say, okay, how do we still have a business after this? And it truly saved our business working with stylists and doing these virtual events. And also women really enjoyed having that camaraderie with other women and how to stay strong during these challenging times. So that was a really incredible feat that our company did. And every single person in the company played a role in that. And we were able to not only survive, but thrive during COVID. So that was one piece. And then another piece is how do we keep our wholesale business where we had these stores, we had these relationships with these stores. We can't go meet them. We can't attend trade shows. How do we stay relevant with these stores as well? So we had a kind of curated pick box business that we did with our wholesale accounts where we would just send them the jewelry, the accessories, let them pick and choose at home. We would send them a return label and they would, and I know it's done in retail, but it's not really done in wholesale. And they were able to send back what they didn't think would work for their customers. And that's how we were able to keep that without being face to face with our accounts, where they're able to touch and feel the product. And they loved it. And we were able to keep that business thriving as well.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Well, if people want to know more about Freida Rothman's brand, where's the best place to go?
FreidaRothman.com. That's an EI, and it shares all about the collections and a little bit about the inspiration of the story as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Freida and Susan, for your input on this. I think it's an incredible topic, and people need to continue to develop their creativity because challenges will come again, and or you need to be unique in your own offering to what you bring to your particular employer. So thank you again for your time, and I truly appreciate both of you and your contribution to this topic.
Thank you, Sarah, for inviting us.